Welcome to the end of the week. Oh, wait, never mind. It's a recruiting weekend, so there's no end to the week. There's just more news coming this weekend from Blue White Illustrated and from Penn State football. So that's why we're doing our Friday recruiting show. We are live here. Finally, we get a chance to go live and talk to you about what's coming up on the weekend for Penn State football recruiting. Ryan Snyder here with me to preview everything. And last week, Ryan, you got off to a pretty hot start. I gave you credit on Sunday, but we haven't had a chance to talk about this. Nailing the DeJuan Lane thing in terms of one of the first commits that Penn State was going to get in this official visit weekend. So who's next? That's already what people want to know in the chat.
Right.
Any RPM picks for today?
Well, I mean, to circle back with DeJuan, I mean, it was, I don't want to say I appreciate the credit. I just don't want to say I nailed that one just because DeJuan doesn't talk. Again, I'll keep stressing that. Like, there's a lot of times where, we do nail it because we're in touch with kids, but that one was just no other visit set. Penn State feels good. So you go from there. But, potentially putting some RPM picks in today, just kind of waiting to get feedback from people, right? I mean, that's the most important thing. And people I'm trying to get in touch with are also people who are very busy at the moment themselves. So just kind of wait and see. But I mean, I think anyone who's a subscriber and, has been reading Sean and I's Ask Around roundtables, on I think it was Tuesday, Wednesday, somewhere in that ballpark. We did an RPM one, really kind of predicting things and who we thought Penn State led with and coming in this weekend, things like that. So obviously, if you're a subscriber, go double check that one. And then Sean has an S zone out today too, breaking down all types of scenarios and different guys we're watching. So we'll get into some of these guys here in a second and who I think stands out. But the last thing I will say with this too is just compared to last weekend. I mean, the Penn State has what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players on campus, 6 of whom hold 4-star ratings, right? So if you go through these guys as well, unlike some of the guys who committed last week, which isn't a knock on them, but some of these guys just have higher profile schools after them pushing harder for official visits and things like that. So it's not ever cut and dry, and we were a little surprised by 3 commitments last week, but out of this group, this is the most talented group, when it comes to, overall percentage of these guys. It's a really stacked, uncommitted group of players.
Yeah, so where do you want to start with that? Do you want to start with the fact that 13 of the 17 committed players are going to be on campus this weekend, or do you want to dive into those top targets? I think for fans, obviously, people here want to know, you going to get another 3? Is it going to be a bumper crop of 4-star players this weekend? I know you just kind of went through that, but everyone's very excited about that. So which side of the coin do you want to start with?
Well, I mean, there's not a whole, obviously the committed guys, like what is there to talk about, right? I mean, obviously them being here is important, but them being here is important because of the uncommitted guys, right? And recruiting those guys and the impact that those relationships have over a 48-hour span. So I think that's kind of the main thing. If you go to our visit tab as well, at BWI, click on the prompt up top, football recruiting visits. You can check out the full list. But as T. Frank laid it out, I mean, it's the majority of the committed guys here this weekend. Kari Jackson, scheduling wise, had to come last weekend, and then of course they got 3 commitments last weekend, right? So they were all here last weekend. But before those commitments, out of the 14 guys, Kari was the only one who couldn't make it this weekend. So you got everybody. I mean, Anthony Specca was here last weekend as well. He's back now for his official. He was here to camp, of course, last weekend. Caleb Brewer as well. He'll be back. We'll see if any of these guys do camp on Sunday. I think I was talking to somebody. They said maybe Cooper Cousins and Caleb will camp again, which is awesome. I mean, Penn State, like it's a free chance to work with your coaches, right? Basically, not a free. I mean, they got to pay, but it's an opportunity to work with your coaches. Ahead of time. So just to clarify one thing, you can't, like, if they were here for an official visit and the camp was actually taking place during the visit, they're not allowed to do that. But if the camp's before or after the visit, NCAA rules wise, they can. So this camp's after their visits. Their visits will wrap up late morning, early afternoon. That camp will start at like 2 p.m. on Sunday. And I wouldn't be shocked if a couple of those guys, committed guys, are at camp on Sunday.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Last year, watching all of Penn State's, most of Penn State's committed players coming to multiple camps, it was like when you're taking these guys and you have multiple players that have kind of a project label on them, Anthony Donko and Javen Williams, who are incredibly physically talented, and then legally you can get in some extra work. It's brilliant. It's just such a smart thing to do for the young player as well, because, a hypothetical scenario, things fall through a little bit and maybe you don't end up with Penn State. I'm just total hypothetical. You then have college coaching that you've been able to go to, even if it's not a Penn State camp. I think that this is a really smart model for players that want to get better for them to do. Shifting focus here because I do want to talk a little bit about the camp on Sunday a little bit later, but this is totally intentional, right? Penn State's committed players in a group of also their top targets. Like, does this also read kind of like a best case scenario in some ways? I know that not all the names are here, but a lot of ways, like if this was Penn State's class, you add in the majority of the players that are uncommitted, this would be an ideal scenario for Penn State. It feels like that was sort of intentional.
Certainly. I mean, so here's what I would say to that. I mean, Penn State always knew its committed guys were coming this weekend. And it's really just, when it comes to the uncommitted guys, you're competing against all these top schools. It's really like Penn State was like hopeful that they could come this weekend, but when you're competing against, just name the other top 10 programs in the country. A lot of these guys are in the mix with, 5, 6, 7 of those schools. It's really just kind of who falls where and how families' calendars work. But it is certainly a major perk for Penn State to have 6 4-star players out of the 7 on campus this weekend with all their committed guys. Now, with that said, if you go look at next weekend, you got Benedict Ume, you got Carter Nelson, you got Ethan Callaway, you got Josiah Brown, you got there's another 6, 7 4-stars next week too. So now next week's a little bit bigger list of uncommitted guys. So when you look at the percentages of it, obviously this is a little more condensed stack class, but there's going to be just as many 4-star guys on campus next weekend as well. It's really just the pound for pound. Pretty much all of these guys are top 300 prospects. And Xavier Porter is the one who's not. And then Xavier's also kind of, we'll get in him in a second, but he's kind of what I would say like one of those reconnaissance missions this week and trying to figure out, his size and stuff like that. Because on film, they really like what they see.
He's awesome. Yeah. Just throw this up here right now. Let's start with him, and then we'll get into some of the other guys that made me say what I said earlier. Xavier Porter, he fits a lot of what Penn State really likes in a defensive lineman: athletic, great use of hands, explosive, disruptive upfield. But if you got a Zane Durant who's a little bit undersized, if Caleb Brewer ends up at defensive tackle, maybe he's not undersized, but the length issue he has, I think that's a huge thing for Xavier Porter. Is what are his size measurables? Is there anything beyond that? Like, how much is this relationship? Like, I know it's a newer relationship. How much does it get to know you as well as getting those hard numbers that I'm always on about when it comes to recruits?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, it's a newer relationship, yes, but it's still been going on for a couple of months now too. So I wouldn't this official visit's been set for like 2 months now. So there is a good relationship there. But yeah, no doubt about it. Right now we have him at 6'1", 260-ish, right? Is he 6'1"? Is he, because a lot of guys that are 6'1" are really 6 foot, 5'11". Yeah. There's multiple. We've talked about the Jashir Whittington all the time, committed to Pitt from Imhotep. He's more like 5'11" and a half, 6 foot. And, he's a player that I think had 2 more inches Penn State would be harder after. So is Xavier Porter that? What is he? They haven't been able to get those measurements, and that's what they're going to try and get out of this weekend. But, really good prospect out of Tampa Catholic, teammates with Jamir Grimsley, who's on campus this weekend. There's a lot of little things there that Penn State likes. Great kid, awesome kid. That was one of my favorite interviews I've done probably over the last 6 weeks was getting to know Xavier Porter. So, just one of those things where I think Sunday at 12, Penn State will have a better feel for how they want to pursue him. At the same time, you have Xavier Gilliam committed already, who of course was last weekend. You got Benedict Ume coming to campus here soon. Obviously Brewer worked out as an O-lineman last week. I think the fact he worked out as an O-lineman, I think we certainly need to start throwing him towards the O-lineman category more. We're going to list him as an athlete, and this season will have a big impact on that. But a lot of talented D tackles still to get sorted out. Is where I'm going with that.
Yep. I wouldn't say it's a surprise live show here on Friday, but maybe we haven't been doing these as often on Friday morning. So if you want to help spread the word, please subscribe to Blue White Illustrated here on YouTube and like this video. Helps us with the almighty algorithm to get out there and let people know, hey, You're getting your Friday football content at 10 a.m. You're getting a preview of the weekend and all that sweet, sweet information from Ryan Snyder. So please like the video, subscribe to Blue White Illustrated, and this is a good time to tell you about the deal you can get right now, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Somebody on the YouTube comments actually said, hey, it was the name Blizzard Warning said, you know what, that is a great deal. I'm going to sign up for the year access. And somebody said, hey, T. Frank, is this your burner account? Believe it or not, people can be influenced by the things you say. I made a great pitch earlier this week, and we got a subscriber, so thanks to Blizzard Warning for wanting to join BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. But Ryan, the $1 for 3 months, just to preview what Andy Frank talked about, you said this the other day. June is the busiest month ever, so this is a great time to sign up, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, and at this point, you'll get it for a couple of weeks into the season. That West Virginia visitor list is going to be massive that first week. So if you took advantage of the 3 months, that would include that as well. But I mean, half off for a year as well. I mean, it just depends on how interested you are in recruiting and things like that. And to me, obviously, I've been following this stuff, not just my job. Like I got into this job because I had a Rivals account back in the day, and followed it because I loved recruiting and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, 3 months for $1 is awesome, and half off for a year is pretty good too.
Yeah, I always like those value deals. If you find a value deal, definitely take it. The problem is once you get in, you're going to be hooked. And then it's going to be every year. It's a good problem you're going to have. Robert Bosfield.
Yeah, I got kids to feed, guys, so please get hooked. Okay? They're getting expensive.
Robert Bosfield here with us, loving the Friday live show. I don't have kids to feed, but I have obnoxious cats, so I love that he's here because, we all need to keep our numbers up during June. Let's get into the prospects, though. Let's talk about these guys that made me say, hey, this definitely felt intentional that all these guys are here with the committed players. And you already mentioned the guy I want to start with. That's Jamir Grimsley, teammate of Xavier Porter, Tampa Catholic. So Fitz did a deep dive on him, I think, yesterday. So you want to check that out at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. But what can you tell us about Grimsley and where he fits into an already full corner room and on this roster of committed players?
Well, certainly, there's quite a few corners committed in this class. But when you look at that gap of what's expected to leave this year, they need more bodies there. I think in an ideal world, they would get another transfer or the junior college kid, Siona Lalele, who was just here this past weekend. But look, there's also players that you just cannot pass up. And it doesn't matter what year you are, how many commits you have. And Jamir Grimsley is one of those guys. I mean, let's go back a little bit here. Penn State was the first school to offer Jamir Grimsley. I apologize. I don't remember exactly when. I think it was the end of last fall. T. Frank, look that up for me while I'm ranting here for a second if you can. But Terry Smith was the first one to really say, hey, why is this kid not getting a bunch of awesome offers? And Penn State is the first to jump on board. And now, my friends, he is absolutely one of the top cornerback prospects in the nation. So, obviously, us as scouting services, we pick up on those things and notice that stuff. But Terry Smith is in a lot of ways the one who kind of put Jamir Grimsley on the map. So he comes and visits earlier this year, has a great visit. Everything kind of stacks up well. Excuse me. Yeah, it was back in March. Penn State's in a great position there. It felt like, and then let me clarify. At the time, then he starts picking up all these awesome offers, right? So Alabama, Michigan, North Carolina, there's a ton of schools here. I mean, we can just keep going on and on and on. What you need to know, though, is that Penn State is duking this out with Alabama now. Which is kind of funny to me that Terry Smith puts him on the radar, and now Alabama. He's a Florida kid, right? Like Florida, I'm shocked that Alabama and their 20-plus recruiting staffers didn't kind of see his potential earlier. I mean, he's 6'2", runs a great 100-meter time. Like, there's a lot there. So long story short, he's going to be here this weekend. This is going to be probably Penn State's last opportunity to impress because he's going to go to Alabama next weekend, and I believe he has one more to Michigan as well at the end of the month. But he's a +1 guy, right? He's a guy that no matter what, even if he's committed to Alabama, they are going to be pursuing him to the very end, to the day that ink dries. He is probably, John Mitchell's been up there really high as well, but I've kind of had Jamir Grimsley as probably Terry Smith's most important corner in this class. Whether he's uncommitted, committed guys, whatever it is, he is very coveted.
And that is, what would that do for this recruiting class in terms of you're taking 3 outside corners, you're taking Kenny Woosley, who has that inside-outside versatility. That's not too full at the end. I know what you're saying about numbers leaving the program, but also all those guys in 1 year, like the numbers then become a little bit murky in terms of, stacking classes. Does that have an effect on anything? And how do you feel that if he were to commit, shakes out? Does Belgrave Shorter then lean more towards a safety long term, or is that irrespective of another player adding into the class?
No, they'll be corners. I mean, look, they're going to lose 3 guys this year. Kalen King, Hardy, Dixon are all gone. Like, let's kind of look at it like that. And let's look at what they got. They got Cam Miller, they got Collins, they got Tracy, they got Tracy in Washington. Okay. Like they got 4 corners pretty much coming back. Like you need more than 4 corners. So they'll sort some things out, of course. But again, like they need 3 to 4 corners ASAP. They need that board to be up around 7 or so. Would they prefer to have a junior coming in? That's why they got Storm Duck, right? They were trying to get some guys with experience and stuff in there. It didn't work out. They'd prefer to have more experience there, but it's not falling where they need it to fall at the moment. And they're just not going to pass up on talented players. And Jamir Grimsley is probably the most talented of them all. They weren't going to pass up on Kenny. I mean, Kenny's been high on the board for a long time. Belgrave Shorter, they liked. I mean, they're Terry Smith is hitting. Like he's getting his top guys. And this is just another one of those top guys that he has to have no matter what. Again, you'd like the scholarships to be distributed a little bit more. But you got the transfer portal too, right? I mean, this isn't like 5 years ago where that was an actual issue when guys had to sit out a year. Now that can be fixed within 2 portal windows.
Very good point. Just interesting how bring up some of these different nuanced areas of how does that affect this class? Because as we talked about, it is getting a bit full here heading into the second recruiting weekend. Next guy we want to talk about, because everyone wants to know about Jamonte Waller. How's the situation with him? How important is this weekend for Penn State with one of their top defensive end prospects in this class?
Yeah, I mean, whether it's a D end or a linebacker, it doesn't matter. He's a D end. Let me clarify. I mean, for a while we thought linebacker. As this recruitment has gone on and on, it's definitely a D end. And I know it's 6 foot 230, like it doesn't usually what Penn State wants, but he's just a wrecking ball. They absolutely love this kid. And, I'm not going to say Micah Parsons or Chopper. I'm not going to compare them to these guys because that's not fair to these guys, but they will find ways to make excellent edge rushers produce no matter what your size is. So, look, this is going to be a Penn State, Auburn, Florida battle. That's what this is shaping up to be. I believe he was just at Auburn this past weekend. In my eyes, this is a Penn State, Florida battle more than Auburn. I'm not saying Auburn's out of it, but to me, it feels like Penn State and Florida are the 2 schools that have the best opportunity. I don't believe he's going to go to Georgia. I don't know if that's been out there yet, and I don't want to put it out there if the kid hasn't, but I guess I already just kind of did. It
was a soft landing.
He has a Georgia official scheduled at the end of the month. I don't think that's going to happen. So it should be down to these 3 schools. Penn State is the favorite right now. Steve, I saw you ask, what's percentages that Penn State lands Jamonte Waller. I hate the percentage game.
That's why it didn't come up on the screen.
I would say above. I don't know, man. I mean, 50-50 is the easy way. Penn State's definitely the favorite, so you can think 60, 65. If you really want to get excited, 70. But look, this weekend's going to be massive. And Florida trip next weekend is going to be massive. I really believe it's going to come down to those 2 schools. Auburn's in it. I just think it's right now 1A, Penn State, maybe 1B, Florida, 2 Auburn. That's kind of how I stack it up. But yeah, this weekend is going to be the last opportunity to impress because I do expect them to be committed here. July, early August at the absolute latest.
So Jamonte Waller is really good. I don't want to take anything away from that. He is as good as you've heard in a lot of different ways. But the thing that I want to point out here, and maybe I'll just do this and I'll share the screen so that everyone understands, this is an On3 broadcast, and I want to explain maybe some of the difference between how things have gone for him, for Jamonte Waller, in the recruiting process. You can see a 5-star by ESPN and 247 Sports. You can say he's a 5-star defensive end. Rivals and On3 especially is a little bit lower on Waller. I know, Ryan, you and I have talked to Charles Power, and when there is a positional ambiguity, that is when sometimes guys, they become a 3-star, and then we'll evaluate once we have a fuller understanding of where they're going to play and all of those things. So if you don't see Jamonte Waller 5-star linebacker, that doesn't mean he's not that good. It means that there is a disagreement about what position he plays, really, is what it comes down to between the recruiting services and being a 6-foot, 230-pound defensive end versus being a 6-foot, 230-pound linebacker is a huge difference in rating and recruiting. So if you said he's a 5-star linebacker and then somebody else refers to him as a 4-star, like this is the disagreement about Jamonte Waller. What nobody will disagree with is that he is explosive, strong, and an awesome pass rusher, and has a lot of versatility and a high upside no matter where you put him. So I just wanted to make sure that when you're talking about Jamonte Waller, and if there's ever a disagreement of whether he's a 4-star or 5-star, that is why.
He should be a 4-star by 1-3. And I've Charles and I have talked about this a little bit. I mean, I do think he will be a 4-star when it's all said and done. But yeah, I mean, Charles's mindset is, usually, like, we're doing these star rankings because we're trying to compare it to what they'll be in the NFL draft. Like, that's how you ultimately compare these, right? You're trying to, 5-star guys are who you want to be first-round draft picks. And this past year, credit to Charles and the guys at 24/7. Charles was at 24/7 at the time. Like, it was one of the best classes they've ever done as far as like matching 5 stars to first-round draft picks. And that's what they're really trying to do there. I mean, Charles's fear here, I guess, not fear, but fear, I guess it would be, is ranking him too high and then, size being an issue NFL long-term. So, but to me, look, all this doesn't matter. Okay. Penn State loves this kid. They want to get this kid. The kid fits Penn State really well. There's a lot of things.
But Ryan, I guess the thing that I wanted to put out there is that when we talk about, does Penn State get a top 10 class, and here's a 5-star, and for on 3, he's not a 5-star right now. He's a 3, maybe he's a 4. He's still not a 5-star, which is going to be a question that comes up later. So that I think it's important to explain. It doesn't diminish his talent. It is more about what you just described, and I think that's an important thing to get out there for fans, maybe casual people who watch here on the YouTube channel that don't go deep diving into what we do at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Here's more of the public thing of, hey, this is why 3 versus 5 or 4 versus 5.
Right. The other thing you need to know, or just I want to clarify, is like when we're talking about top 10 classes, the rankings go off of the industry rankings, not the on 3 rankings. And the industry ranking right now has them at number 81 in the country. So if they get Jamonte Waller, it will be a massive boost to Penn State's class. He will actually be, I don't have the class in front of me, but will he be the 2nd ranked guy in the country? I think so, because I think Quentin Martin's ranked number 41 in the country. And then, John Mitchell's number 174. So, I mean, getting him would still be a massive boost to Penn State's class.
So let's move on to some of the other players. We want to.
He's a 4-star, damn it, Charles. Let's fix it. Let's fix this. Okay, move on.
Let's move on.
Charles and I need to have this talk. We've had it a couple of times. All right, next.
So some of I think the most positive, if you got somebody on commit watch, might be some of these guys that we're going to talk about next. One name that I think Penn State fans are very excited about because of the position and because of the need would be Nick Marsh. So let's go into what Nick Marsh means to Penn State and what he means this weekend.
Yeah, I would have him as the most important guy on campus this weekend. Penn State right now sees 2 absolute difference makers at the wide receiver position. Nick Marsh is one of them. Chance Robinson's the other. And Chance Robinson was just here this past weekend, committed to Miami. Florida's very much in the mix. That recruitment's going to drag out. I mean, Nick Marsh is their best opportunity to get a difference maker at the wide receiver position and get that wrapped up within the next handful of weeks. So that's why I would have him as the most important guy on campus this weekend. And we'll go from there. So here's what you also need to know. Nick Marsh just spent 3 days with On3 staff in Nashville last week of the On3 Elite Series, which was a really cool event. I mean, it was, Rivals, for example, they do like camp events. On3's thing is teaching guys about NIL and, how to use their brands and stuff and help them move forward. I think it's honestly really cool. And I'm not just trying to sit here and shell On3 on it, but kids need to be educated about On3, need to be educated about NIL and how it's going to help them move forward. So I really thought that was cool, and it was awesome that Nick Marsh attended. But the thing to know is, Chad Simmons put that prediction in for Nick Marsh after spending days with him in Nashville. And look, we put in predictions all the time, after just a 5-minute conversation with guys or even like text messages with guys. My point is, when you get to spend multiple days with someone and really get a read on someone, that's what was significant about that Chad Simmons RPM to me, is that this wasn't just, hey, I've been texting with him. We had a 5-minute talk one Wednesday night. This is what I think. This was after multiple days of conversations and getting to know the kid. So that's really significant. I haven't personally put one in myself yet. Honestly, I'm not really sure why. I feel like I should. And here's why, actually. I just want to be my own journalist, and I want to get my own opinions and my own feel for things. I try not to just follow people. Like, everybody in this industry just follows people. If we put a pick in, people follow us all the time. And Sean and I just hate that. Like, I just do your own work, basically. So I try not to do that. And whether that's with someone at 24/7 or whether that's someone with a 1-3, I want to do my own work. And either it's getting a read on Penn State or getting a read on Nick Marsh. That's really why I haven't yet. But I mean, Chad Simmons is one of the absolute best in this industry. I'm without a doubt one of the top 3 recruiting reporters in the world right now, or in the country. I guess no one else is doing this.
Let's go with world. Why not?
In the universe, screw it. But yeah, I mean, you have to trust Charles here, and spending a couple of days with him, that makes me think that there's definitely credence to that.
A couple things about Nick Marsh that I think are interesting. Going through his highlight film, and without dipping into his full game film, his second batch of highlight film that he put out, so much better than his first batch. Just stacking, the way you stack your highlight film and the way that you create it, I think is really important, because the first thing I saw in his first group was like, oh, all of these are contested catches in the red zone. To me, that tells me, does he have any big-time plays, like in terms of deep receptions, or what's his speed like? It's telling me things that I don't see. And then the second group was like, oh, no, just kidding. Here's what you want to see. So I think that there has been some... Nick Marsh is an excellent receiver. He's a top 100 player. He's the 86th overall player. That's why he was at the Elite NIL on 3 event. But in terms of like his film... I started in one place and ended in something entirely different. What I want to ask you next about Nick Marsh, though, is that his top 5 to me is interesting. Normally, you can see like a regional thread or an elite thread or like schools that have similar values. But Nick Marsh, here's his top 5 that he put out yesterday: Pitt, Oregon, Penn State, Michigan State, and Kansas. What's the common thread? Is there a common thread there?
Common thread is that he's down to Penn State and Michigan State, and he's just throwing schools in there.
All right, cool. All right, that's what it seems like.
That's what I think, at least. I mean, I haven't talked to Nick enough to really, know. But I mean, just come on, right? I mean, that's what I read.
Okay, that's kind of where I was leaning as well. Is like there's a lot of things that don't make a lot of sense here. So Nick Marsh, incredibly important. Follow along, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Subscribe here, so in case anything happens, if it does, we'll keep you up to date with breaking news and breaking news videos. We got a couple more guys we got to get here very quickly, because as always, we talk way too long at the beginning, and then we get into the meat of this stuff, and then we're rushing at the end.
I got like 10 minutes. by like 10:45, I got to actually.
I promised you this was going to be under 35, so we're going to get it under 35. Malachi Williams, another important player, another player that it feels like Penn State in a great position for. What can you tell us about Malachi?
Yeah, another guy that, like I said, Penn State's in a great position for, right? I mean, he's got official visits lined up to Pitt, and I believe, is it Syracuse the other one? I don't have the list in front of me, but I believe it's Pitt and Syracuse. What does that tell you? I mean, it should tell you Penn State's the team to beat there. I think if someone were to commit this weekend, it would be him. That would be my pick. Just because, again, I don't think he's. I'm not saying he's not serious about those other schools, but I think he fully understands the level that Penn State's on compared to those schools. I think he fully understands the level of NFL production that Penn State's on compared to those schools. Not although I will give Pitt credit. I mean, Pitt's certainly produced some good defensive linemen in recent years.
Yeah, but defensive end for sure, Penn State has become a player in that area. Right.
So, I mean, you got Deion Barnes there as well. Where's Deion from? Philly. Deion's respected in Philly more than anywhere. Now you have the next best up and coming Philly defensive end rusher coming out. That's absolutely going to play a role here. So, I mean, to be blunt, we're talking about RPM picks. If I'm making one today, it's going to be him.
So I think Penn State would love to get another defensive end. We'll talk about defensive tackles 1,000 times this summer, but I'm all about keeping a strength a strength. And Malachi Williams with his upside. There's some things on his highlight film. Again, I need to watch his full film, but there's some things on his highlight film that I think are a little concerning in terms of a lot of the plays are just unblocked him running upfield and destroying running backs, but that's a lot of what happens in high school now. Secondarily, raw prospect. Another area where Penn State is taking a very toolsy player and wants to develop him. But the reality is defensive end, this is true of every position because you want all of the tools at every position, but defensive end, like freak list players, that's where you get all of your best defensive ends are guys that have unbelievable size, speed, and athleticism, and Malachi Williams is somebody who has all of those skills obvious on film. So let's get through, I believe this is our last player. We have two more. But we can talk about Nigel Smith next and then go into Babu Tori. So tell us about these guys.
Yeah, I mean, Nigel has a lot of interest in Penn State, and I do believe it's sincere. The thing with Nigel, though, is he's visited everywhere, and I think he has a lot of interest in a lot of schools. I mean, he came out and set 5 official visits for summer, and then he's going to take another one during the season too. I'm trying to remember. I think it's Texas. He's going to see a game at Texas, I believe, in the beginning of September. So this recruitment doesn't feel like it's going to end this summer. It's going to drag into the fall. And for the longest time, I've felt that, is he really going to leave Oklahoma, Texas A&M? Like, is he going to leave that region? I just don't know if I see it. So I think Penn State has a good opportunity to be top 3. No, honestly, actually, I don't. I think Penn State's top 5, top 4. When it comes down to top 3, I would give Ohio State, Texas A&M, and Oklahoma and Texas probably the edge, with Penn State probably being on the outside looking in. So we'll see if this weekend changes anything. I think there's a lot that he likes. He's a great player. He fits a lot of their needs. He does want to be an edge. Like, he's one of those players who's made it very clear that he doesn't want to be listed as a defensive lineman or defensive tackle. He wants to be considered as an edge. And right now at 6'4", 265, that's possible, but obviously he's got a lot more growing to do when he gets into a college program. So, how schools handle that will be interesting as well. But I'd be surprised if Nigel Smith ended up at Penn State.
Do you say Texas A&M is in there as well? You say that
I believe so. I think they have an official visit set for June 23rd.
Okay, so just from a schematic standpoint, that is a great fit for him. You can see he plays a 5 technique on film in high school. He's got that body type, 6'4", 260. If he wants to technically play on the edge, that's a defensive end, but he'll also be using his strengths of length, size, and strength.
Good 5 tech.
Yeah, exactly. So that would, for a selling point for Texas A&M, that's not a bad place. Now, the production of those defensive ends, not so much. So let's get into Babu Tori. Let's talk about our last player here.
Yeah, this would probably be the other guy that I'd put a pick in for. And Penn State's been in a good position for a long time. It's just kind of another situation where I want to do my own reporting. I want to speak with him or speak with Penn State people. Brian Doan, who I consider a good friend in the industry. He works for 24/7. Put in a pick a couple weeks ago, maybe a week ago, whatever it is now. And I don't disagree. Sean and I totally agree. I mean, it's been leaning that way for a while. Oklahoma, Kentucky visits are still set. I think he's going to do those next week. I think he's just going to go back to back to back, I believe, like Penn State, immediately to Kentucky, immediately to Oklahoma. So I wouldn't be shocked if he still takes those visits and doesn't commit this weekend, which is why I think, putting in a pick for Williams is more likely than Tori at the moment. But this is a recruitment that should end up a player that should end up at Penn State. It also really helps that Penn State just got DeJuan Lane last weekend. So they can push that whole, hey, look, we only got 1 spot left. You don't want this to drag on further because we got Kosh Sanders expected to come. Jalen Hayward supposedly may still come, although I don't really expect Jalen Hayward to flip from Georgia. But my point is there's other safeties out there, and they can really kind of push the chips in and say, hey, don't potentially lose out on your spot. So keep an eye on him. I think he'd fit really well. Aggressive player, fun to watch, and a pretty good athlete as well. So when it comes time to sign, I expect him to be here. Whether he commits this weekend or takes a little bit longer, that's kind of where I'm still trying to figure out.
Ryan, any last thoughts before we get out of here?
Camp this weekend. I don't care about because I'm going to the beach. No, I'm kidding. I'm just joking. There will be a couple talented guys. T. Frank, you texted me earlier asking for a camp list, and I got it just a little bit ago. So
fantastic, because I will be there, so I'll be getting you all the photos.
Don't worry, we'll get you the info you need. Couple guys. I mean, Tony Williams is a good looking defensive back prospect. He put it out there publicly on Twitter. I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago. 2025 safety, 6'2", 185, and already has a 4-star rating. So Penn State offer as well. So keep an eye on him. I think he's certainly the guy that will get the most buzz this weekend. I can't talk. when comparing to last weekend, I don't expect it to be, as deep of a group. Last week was a pretty good camp looking back on things now. Marquette Dorsey's another 2025 corner from New Jersey. He holds a Penn State offer. And Lyric Williams, I believe it is another player to keep it. Oh, no, is it Lyric Williams? I just lost my list. Where's it at? Lyric Samuels, I believe it is. I lost my list, Frank. But a couple other young guys coming in. Lyric Samuel, excuse me. That's what it is. Those three are probably the main guys to keep an eye on. I'm going to also keep an eye on Jack Janda, who's a really, really impressive looking 2026 tight end out of Orchard Lake in Michigan. Jack Janda is, in my eyes, the next Brady Prescorn. So 2026 guy, got a couple years to go, but remember the name. He might be here this weekend. Still trying to confirm that.
All right. Well, we will be working on that all weekend. We'll be at the camp. We'll get you all the photos, videos, and information you want coming out of Sunday. So subscribe to BlueWhiteIllustrated.com so you can get it. We'll have a little bit coming out over the weekend here on the YouTube channel, maybe some highlight videos. We haven't, not promising anything, but for sure on Monday, we'll recap everything on our Monday recruiting show. So I'm Thomas Frank Carr. That's Ryan Snyder. We will be back. That's the main thing to know. Always giving you content here on Blue White Illustrated's YouTube channel. We'll talk to you then.